Welcome back to the Nikki Clarke Radio Show. The show is about transforming lives one story at a time. It's about conversations that matter, and we invite people from all walks of life to come and share their heart stories, their stories of inspiration and upliftment. And I'm just so excited to invite a stellar man on the line. He's doing wonderfully amazing things for the community. He's the Senior Manager for Diversity and Inclusion at Walmart Canada. Please welcome Richard Pinnock to the show. How are you doing tonight, Richard?
Oh, I'm very good. Thank you very much, Nikki. I'm so excited to be on your show. I've never been interviewed on the radio, so thank you very, very much.
Oh, it's such a pleasure, and thank you for your time. And I noticed that we have a couple of things in common. One, we're both from Montreal, which is pretty awesome. And then we also went to McGill University, so that's very, very cool. So let's talk about those beginnings. Richard, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, I was actually born in Montreal, not far from McGill at the what was then the Royal Victoria Hospital. So my dad worked on the railroad. My mom was a survivor of the war from Europe, so they met in Montreal, which is a beautiful place. I actually was the first in my family to complete high school. I went on to do my Bachelor of Commerce and then my MBA. And to me, volunteering is also something that I really focus on. These are two things that my parents really ingrained in the family. I do work with the Toronto Police, Halton Regional Police, Peel Halton Local Employment Planning Council, and actually I'm very proud recently this year I received the Association of Black Law Enforcers Community Service Award.
Beautiful. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. It was a great organization, excellent work that they do. I worked for the Royal Canadian Mint. If you remember the $2 coin coming out, I was the Director of Marketing at the Royal Canadian Mint. PricewaterhouseCoopers, York University, I worked at Client Logic, which is an Onyx company in the area of customer service management. And currently, as you mentioned, diversity and inclusion at Walmart. The thing that's probably most important to me, I mean, without any question, is family. I have two amazing daughters, Marika and Kiara, so shout out to them. And
I think I met
graduated
them a few years ago.
Yes.
They're beautiful.
Yes. Yeah, and that was at the breakfast. So I graduated at McGill, and I had this unfortunate experience. Can I share a little story about that?
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
Okay, so I was at the time I graduated, there's very few jobs being posted at the Career Center, but I was very active on campus, involved in a lot of volunteering and fraternity stuff and all sorts of things. So I had my eyes glued to the board, and an opportunity came up with a national paint company. So I was sent off by the Career Center. It's very, very few jobs. I was so excited. I had my car, kind of a junky car, but I liked it a lot at the time, and I was feeling really on top of my game and looking forward to this opportunity. So I walked into the office, and the lady was there. She kind of looked at me kind of surprised. And she goes, "Yes, can I help you?" I said, "Yes, it's Richard Pinnock. I'm here from McGill University for the job interview." And she said, "Oh, okay. Well, here, we have a questionnaire. There's 50 questions. And don't worry about finishing them. No one's ever finished them. I've been here for 14 years. So just do your best. We have 12 minutes that you're going to be assigned." And she pulled out one of those old-fashioned cooking timers, plastic ones. So, "Are you ready?" And I said, "Yes, I'm ready to go." So off we went. So I started, I went through question 14. And then 11 minutes later, I walked up to her office, knocked on her door, and she looked up angrily, what did I not understand? What did I not explain to this guy? And she goes, "Yes." And I go, "I'm finished." And she's like, "Finished?" So she grabbed the paper out of my hand. I was kind of surprised. She said, "Have a seat." So I had a seat. So a few minutes later, she comes out, and her jaws kind of drop. She's walking slowly. She goes, "Oh, you did very well." And I said, "How did I do?" She said, "You got 44 right." And I said, "What was the highest score you ever saw in 14 years?" She said, "The highest score I've ever seen is 45. I thought, great.
Wow.
But then she said, "But unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to put you forward because I'm afraid I'm going to lose my job if I do." And she went on to explain that it's a very conservative company and this and that. And, I've used this case scenario many times. I do a lot of volunteering with the Toronto Police, Halton Police, and many universities and so on. And so I paused there and I said, "What would you do?" People say, "Oh, you should go talk to the owners and you should talk to the boss and this and that." I said, I don't think so. There's so many few jobs, like such a few number of jobs available. And imagine I go and I play the race card, say, because of my racial background that I did not get the job. And that's the last time they're going to place me anywhere. So instead, I got in my car, and it was a beautiful sunny day in Montreal on Park Avenue. I was parked, and I said to myself, I'm going to do everything I can to ensure that other Canadians don't have to experience what I just experienced. And I've been doing it for over 30 years.
Wonderful, wonderful. And, you know, that kind of makes me think of what I've experienced in my journey as a woman candidate. You know, I just recently ran in the federal election, and there are so few women who ran, and in particular, women of color who ran. And I think there needs to be more encouragement for women to run in those spaces. But there are many spheres in what we do in life that are not represented fully. Why do you think that is as compared to their male counterparts? What do you think is responsible for this?
Well, it's funny. My dad worked on the railroad, his Jamaican background, and he always told his buddies that one of these days, Richard's going to be the Prime Minister of Canada, you know? So I had it in my head at a young age that I don't know how you do that job, but that's what my dad says, I'm going to be the Prime Minister, you know? So I was always filled with this idea of optimism and possibility. Back in 1984, Judge Rosalie Abella, created the Abella Commission. And they looked into this whole question of underrepresented segments of Canada's workforce. And they decided not to use the term affirmative action because it was kind of a hot topic, very divisive in the U.S. They came up with this term employment equity. That was the term. Okay. And this led to the Employment Equity Act of 1986. This act identified women, visible minorities, Native, now Indigenous people, and also people with disabilities. So those are the four groups. So off we go. We're going to try to figure out through the Employment Equity Act how we're going to engage these folks. Nikki, do you know that a third of a century later, we've had very limited progress for women? Out of the top 500 companies and organizations, revenue base in Canada, did you know that 109 of them still do not have a single woman on their board of directors? Did you know that?
Unbelievable.
Yeah. You talk about legislative elected positions. Women currently make up only 27% of the House of Commons, which, by the way, is the highest percentage in Canadian history. There was this report in 2017, and they ranked international countries. You know, Canada placed 63rd. We're behind Rwanda, Mexico, Afghanistan, and South Sudan. And you know, it's even less progress when it comes to visible minorities. About 4.7% of the VP and above roles in Canada are held by visible minorities. And of the 4.7, only 5% of the 4.7% are held by visible minority females. So I think we've got a long ways to go.
We sure do. Yeah, those are really staggering percentages. Definitely, we do have some catching up to do. So let's talk about something that you've coined together in a phrase, supplier diversity, and why measures have been taken to ensure equity. Okay,
well, I would say, so supplier diversity is this whole idea. The U.S. is much more prevalent than Canada. In my opinion, the U.S. is maybe 20 years ahead of Canada in many aspects when it comes to diversity and inclusion, specifically in terms of representation, you know, legislators, Barack Obama, et cetera, colleges, private sector, media, and especially when it comes to supplier diversity. The U.S. thinks that Canada leads in this area, but I don't think so. There was recently a survey conducted by Deloitte, and when asked, these are Canadian companies, when asked what are they investing, what are Canadian companies investing their diversity and inclusion investment in, only 2% cited supplier diversity. So this whole idea about employment equity, I think the long-term viability of Canada has to be about supplier diversity. So what does that mean again? It's looking to underrepresented groups that are entrepreneurs, women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, LGBTQ+ owned businesses, and trying to figure out ways to engage with this pool of talent that we have here in Canada, because they're not quite figuring out how to get through. Walmart is doing a great job trying to reach out. We can talk about that. But many other companies are not necessarily able to be contacted. It's a very difficult thing for a small business to do when you're trying to take care of your your small team, trying to take care of your family, trying to take care of your business. It's very challenging.
Okay. Very good observation. And then there's something that you have that you're involved in called Reconnect. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is?
Yes, the Women Reconnect is an international organization that operates in 47 countries, most active in the U.S. With this group, it's a not-for-profit organization. It certifies that your company is women-owned. So that means 51% or more in terms of the equity, plus women-operated. So that's what constitutes a women-owned business. In the U.S., Walmart, for example, committed $20 billion with a B to supporting women-owned business from 2012 to 2017. And by the way, Walmart surpassed that number. There are actually 3 planks to the Women's Economic Empowerment Initiative. 1 was to do that in the U.S. 2 was to train 1 million women at our cost in emerging markets like Sub-Saharan Africa, India, and other parts of the world. And we're very close to achieving that. And finally, it was to double the procurement, goods and services bought from women-owned businesses in our international market, which constitutes 26 different countries. So these 3 planks would be supported when it comes to partnering with Reconnect. So Walmart is a global sponsor of Reconnect, including Reconnect Canada. So that's what Reconnect is all about, and we recently had a program that we initiated with them, and that was where we asked them if they would like to invite their members to come to meet 45 of our buyers. We spent a full day with 100 women-owned businesses that came, and I can't share the numbers, but I'll just leave it to say that it was 10 times our expectation in terms of the orders that were placed for these previously non-Walmart vendorized organizations. So they're very, very pleased. Imagine a scenario, Nikki, where on a monthly basis, other companies would be inviting women-owned businesses and other groups to come in and share their ingenuity and their innovation and talent. So that was the idea. This is this collaboration to generate value, this collaborative value generation idea that we're talking about. And that's what garnered this attention that we had. At that event, we invited Ernst & Young and EY and Toronto Dominion, TD, and P&G to observe. And we're very happy that they all have now initiated or in the process of initiating a similar event based on our event.
Fantastic, fantastic. And I have to say, congratulations are in order. You recently received the Reconnect International 2019 Canadian Supplier Diversity Champion Awards. How do you feel about that great honor?
Well, I was praying, I was hoping, please, I was hoping that they would select Walmart as the partner of the year. I'm like, please, because we really are excited about what we're doing here at Walmart. And imagine when they said, and so they said they're going to start with the champion, the individual champion, and I was just surprised. I felt so proud. I was actually at a loss of words. I had a hard time getting my words out. I looked across the room and I saw so many of these wonderful women, so smart, so creative, so driven, so passionate. It was just amazing. And I said to myself, I was there on the stage and there was a full room at their conference, and I thought, what the heck is going on? Like, why are we having to go through these hurdles? Like, what is going on? And it just struck me. Really, supplier diversity is the new frontier for Canada.
Mm-hmm. And what are the benefits of supplier diversity?
Well, so traditionally we have larger, when I say we, I'm referring to Canada, corporate Canada, and also, government agencies, touch base on that. We have large vendors that supply different products and services, and, it's sometimes a little bit difficult to be really resilient and versatile and to be able to move to better take care of your customers. For example, if there's an issue with plastics and your vendor, who's a really, really good vendor, is not necessarily up to speed with packaging that's, recyclable and so on, you're not going to switch to a small woman-owned business who's a real leader when it comes to recycled packaging, for example. It's too difficult to pivot in a short period of time. So what happens as a result is that we don't necessarily have the opportunity in Canada to tap into all of this ingenuity. It's just a difficult task to do. So the benefits are very clear that if you reach out and you work with these underrepresented workforce, the underrepresented suppliers, like I mentioned, women, minorities, disabled people, indigenous, LGBTQ+, and for me, especially newcomers, people are coming based on a point system, highly educated, particularly in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. And what we have to do, I think, is to encourage these folks to start driving the Canadian economy and stop driving taxis and Ubers. The time has come, and this really, really is the next frontier in terms of sustainability and prosperity for our country. I'm very, very passionate about that.
Absolutely. Let's talk about some of the challenges, though, that organizations face when it comes to supplier diversity.
Okay, so as I mentioned, the organizations like Reconnect, they're typically not-for-profit organizations. And the study that was recently done by Deloitte, where only 2% of Canadian corporations surveyed indicated that they have a supplier diversity program. That would mean, Nikki, if you had an organization where you're training people on online broadcasting, for example, although that would be an odd one for many companies to take, but nonetheless, you have your own company, you got certified, you have your certificate, you get on the phone, you're going to call 100 Canadian companies. Unfortunately, 98 of them are probably not going to know what you're talking about when you say you're a woman-owned business and that you're certified. And, there's these organizations like WeConnect. We have WBE Canada also focusing on women, CAMC, which is Indigenous and minorities. Then you have the CGLCC, which is LGBTQ. And, of course, IWSCC, which is Disabled and Veteran Business Owners. And all of these resources, these folks are passionate. They're trying to take care of their families. They're trying to give their kids an opportunity to get through university like you and I did. And, there's just untapped, huge potential, grateful, appreciative potential from these entrepreneurs. And it's really a world of difference if they have an opportunity to show their wares. Only 2% of the private sector organizations surveyed, like I said, focus on supplier diversity. So this is clearly an opportunity. As far as the government, it's interesting. I learned that with NAFTA and also the USMCA, the government is actually not permitted for the free trade agreement to provide a $2 million procurement contract for a woman-owned business, let's say for cleaning or for stem cell research or whatever it is. I just picked that as an example. Because that cleaning company, which is green and highly tech and super engaged and so on, will have an unfair advantage over a woman running a similar business across the border in the U.S. So ironically, the government is actually not in a position to do a lot in terms of providing contracts on the basis of gender, race, etc. So therefore, it's all disconnected. Strategic value creation through collaboration is a step that I'm talking about. I think it's an important step in the right direction.
Fantastic. And I have a final question for you, which is the $1 million question. The show is about transforming lives one story at a time, and I hear so much in your journey of transformation. But what is it that has been the biggest transformation that has happened to you through pursuing this passion work of yours?
Well, I'm so blessed. It happens every day. It goes back to my story when I was in university. It was such a powerful, it still drives me to this day. In terms of what inspires me, though, on a daily basis, I think it's family. Having family is so important. I have 2 amazing daughters, Marika and Kiara, and we often hear that, I have 2 daughters, and that's why I want to support women, women-owned business. I'm saying that my passion is to help people reach their full potential, their God-given potential. And anything short of that, none of us should be satisfied with. So here I am, 33 years later. I'm still trying my best to keep that promise I made as a young man. And again, Nikki, thank you so much for the opportunity to share this with you tonight. It's really a big honor for me. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And the honor is mine to, talk to someone like you who's, you've been there. You've been frontline and really putting into practice what you preach. So I really appreciate what you're doing and continue to do to inspire so many people. So thank you for your time. And let us know, how can people reach out to you? Are you on social media?
Yes, I'm very active on LinkedIn, so just look up Richard Pinnock, MBA. You'll see me there, and I encourage everybody to get on social media and let's start spreading the word, because the future holds nothing but wonderful prospects, and Canada has an opportunity to serve as a beacon for the rest of the world. You look at all the strife that's going on, all the conflict all over the world, and here we are in Canada. We're living together, but now let's take a stand. And let's start with women-owned businesses, because the women are going to show the rest of us how to do it right.
I kind of agree with you. Richard, thank you so much for your time. You've been listening to the Nikki Clarke Radio Show, and we've had a very special guest, the Senior Manager of Diversity Inclusion at Walmart Canada, Richard Pinnock, on the line with us. So, Richard, I thank you again and look forward to connecting with you on LinkedIn.
Okay,
Have
cheers.
a wonderful night. Thank you. Bye-bye now.